All right. Good morning, everyone. We're going to do the pre-market forecast here for Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. We've got, I don't know what that was all about. So we've got the same scenario that we've got pretty much for the entire month of April here, where we've gone sideways all morning and then break out in the afternoon, go to a new all-time high. And that's what's been happening. If you were to look at, if I pull this chart up, we look at the 10-minute, you can see that it's just basically been sideways push, sideways push, sideways push, sideways on, I think that was Monday, and then sideways push yesterday. So if the pattern is going to continue, then we will stay sideways here and then push in the afternoon. But just because that's what we've been doing for the entire month so far does not mean that's what's going to happen today. And so that's why we're going to do our morning analysis here and see what our high time frames are telling us coming into the morning. So let me just pull up my high time frames. And again, because we're just continuing to push to new all-time highs, I do want to look at every time frame, including what I consider my super high time frames. And so still on the quarterly or 3-month chart, everything still looks super bullish here. I'm not sure what happened with my RVI lines here. Seem to gotten shifted there. But overall, there's really no signs of exhaustion from a quarterly 3-month perspective. From the monthly perspective, everything still looks very bullish as well. Still no signs. In fact, you can see this this monthly candle here, just super strong. So again, super high time frames have no indications of a pullback just yet. Same thing on the weekly. So we've got quarterly down to weekly, basically looking exactly as they did yesterday. And when we get into the daily, this is what I was talking about yesterday. So we're starting to get some signs. And I said, if we push higher here, and this daily candle closes, but the RVI pushes lower, we are then going to have the first signs of a bit of exhaustion on the daily perspective. So if you look at what price did here from the 12th into the 13th, which was yesterday, we pushed to make the new all-time high, but the RVI actually pushed down here. And so we got a little bit of a bearish exhaustion pattern building up here on the daily. Now, from yesterday's close, which was around 34, to the open of the Globex and into today, you can see that you can argue that this candle is now come up just a little bit further, and you can see that the RVI has actually come down again. Now this RVI is going to change when this candle closes at the end of the day. So this very well right now, you can see it's kind of tilting downward, but this could end up then tilting back up and it looks a little better. But right now what I see is price advancing higher, but RVI actually pulling back just a little bit. So this is something we're going to have to monitor. And because of the lack of kind of, granularity, lack of resolution here, it's a little tough because you have what can be argued is we're pushing higher, but it's coming lower. But then from the low, you could almost argue that we pushed up higher, but it's pushing lower. So it's a little bit kind of, we'll have to wait for this to shake out throughout the day. But definitely off of the close of yesterday's candle, we got the signs of a bit of exhaustion. Now remember, all the high time frames did not show this, and so we're going to have to go down to the shorter time frames to see if we're starting to get the same picture. Now go down to the 4-hour, and on a 4-hour perspective, as we've pushed up here, we really have not gotten any exhaustion except off of not even really, yeah. So off the all-time high that we made in the afternoon yesterday, really can't argue much for divergence. And then into the pre-market here, you can see that we're up at this all-time high area, and there's just a very slight amount of bearishness here. So we came and we have not come up to test that all-time high from yesterday, but we have come up pretty significantly. So what I'm seeing here is that from that previous daily perspective, we're getting a little bit of exhaustion. And then right here on the high from the overnight, we definitely have some 4-hour bearishness. Now, the thing is we've already pulled back, say, almost 10 points from that high where we got that 4-hour bearish indication. And so now that could really be all we get. Remember, we've just been pushing and then having shallow pullbacks and pushing. And so this pullback could be all we get. And what I'm noticing, although we do have kind of that lack of resolution at this high time frame, if you do look back to some of the previous lows, we did actually push up, and the RVI has basically been about the same. In fact, it even came down a little further. And so we do have kind of two stories going on here from the two extremes of current price. So from a daily and a 4-hour perspective, we do actually have just a little bit of exhaustion showing right now. From the 60-minute, we're also getting that picture, as you can see from, well, you know something, now that I look at this, we had the all-time high, and then we came up to test the all-time high, but we came just a few ticks in front of it. And so we did actually come down in price, and so did RVI. So there's really actually from a 1-hour perspective, we're not quite getting the exhaustion that we see on the daily and the 4-hour. So this exhaustion that we're seeing from the two kind of high time frames here may only be giving us a very small pullback as we come into the open. But we will have to dial down to the shorter time frames to see what they're saying. So right now, the super high time frames all look bullish. The 60 minutes still does not have signs of exhaustion, but then those two in the middle, the 4-hour and the daily, definitely show just a little bit of exhaustion as we push. And you know, that's not to be unexpected, because typically as you push, you're going to get some exhaustion patterns and then some pullback. So that the two indications on the daily and the 4-hour does not mean we're now going to have a significant sell-off, but it is telling us there is a little bit of trouble as we push. Now, I want to go back to the 4-hour here. You could see we had kind of this build up here where every high and every low was giving us divergence. That kind of, the trend like that kind of broke on Monday on Tuesday going into Wednesday. And then now we're starting to get that build up again of basically really clear signals on the highs and the lows as we push. So at some point here, the market is going to run out of steam, and we should see a pretty bloody kind of correction. But I really preferably would like to at least have my weekly, which is the one time frame above my daily, giving me that bearish indication for the pullback. And so far, we do not have that. So those are the high time frames. And again, the 60-minute is not quite showing us the bearishness that the 4-hour is. And so I'm skeptical of it being kind of a significant pullback this morning. And so now let's jump to the intermediate time frames, and then we'll wrap everything up and kind of rehash, get a good synopsis for the morning. So I'll pull up the 30-minute here. And again, from the 30-minute perspective, it looks exactly like the 1-hour. We don't really have any signs of exhaustion up here. And so, again, still think that we could potentially just have a small pullback, maybe hold the CP here and continue, or pull back. I am waiting for this 2650 area to be tested to look for a clear buy signal. And so from this 30-minute perspective, really no signs of exhaustion here, and at the same time, not quite any signs of a bullish continuation pattern at the moment outside of the overnight low. So our overnight low was 4130, And when we came down there in Globex in the afternoon of yesterday, we did get a bullish continuation pattern that has held here and pushed to come up and test, almost get to the all-time high. And now you can see we're getting a little bit of a pullback, but we still have not broken that 4130. And if we do, again, that 2650 and this 20 area are two areas I'm looking at for potential buys to see the market come up and test the all-time high. So from a 30-minute perspective, we have the bullish continuation pattern from the overnight low with no signs of exhaustion off the highs, which is pretty much what the 60-minute was also telling us. Now when we look at the 10-minute, as we pushed up to test the all-time high, we did get a exhaustion pattern that has now led to this pullback. But as we come down and test that 4130 area, we are starting to get that bullish continuation if that 30 does not break. If the 30 breaks, then we again are going to look for potential longs at 20 and 26 here. So right now, it looks like we're probably going to break down and probably break this 30. And if we do, then the potential continuation pattern on the 10-minute will no longer be there. And then we'll just have to, again, reassess at these two levels. So I just want to kind of recap. The super high time frames still look very bullish. So no signs of a strong correction, 100, 200, 300 point pullback. But on our daily and our 4-hour, we are definitely seeing a little bit of exhaustion on the push. And remember, that exhaustion in an uptrend is really just indicating a little bit of a pullback. So I can't tell you exactly how big of a pullback that's going to be, whether it's just going to be this 10 or 15 points, or whether it might be 30 or 40 points. But it sure doesn't look like it's going to be exaggerated like 100 or 200 because of the high time frames not really agreeing. So as we pull back here, I'm going to be looking for longs because of the overall trend. Remember that the short time frames do have a little bit of a bullish continuation off the overnight low. And so we are going to be looking for 30 to hold, although it's looking to me like it's probably going to come down and break. And if it breaks, then we're going to be looking at pretty much every level below us to hold for them to push up and test the all-time high again. Because as we push here, we're now pretty much 10 points down from where we got that bearish exhaustion. And if we go another 5 or 10 points, that's really all we could expect from those bearish signals. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Still a pretty strong bullish bias, but understanding we could have just a little bit of a pullback because of the daily and the 4-hour indication. So that overnight low was exactly 4130, and we're just one tick from it with a little bit of 3-minute, 1-minute, 512 divergence here. But I am going to be a little bit careful. You could try it long and just not take much risk below 30, maybe down to 29.50 here. And so you take 1.5 points of risk if you got in here to potentially see it now carry through to come test the all-time high. But if it starts rolling here, then we can expect to find some support at 26. So we got about 10 minutes until the open, and we're just going to kind of monitor these short time frames and start to look for a decent bias coming into the open. So overall bias is bullish, but we might get a nice confluence of signals on the short time frames that give us, say, a bearish entry, and it's definitely worth trying, especially understanding that we have some key levels below us that should hold. So right now I'm getting some bullish indications. If you look at the 3-minute here, we've got a push to test the overnight low by one. It's actually off by 2 ticks, but now we have this bearish bullish pattern on the 3-minute that we also see on the 1 minute and I believe also on the 512. So this move might end up carrying through just a little bit, and maybe it only comes up to about 41.34. But as you can see on the 1 minute here, we've got the same pattern building up, and then on the 512, the same exact thing, right? Now, we are in the overnight session or the pre-market, which is lower volume. And so if you're looking at a tick chart and you want to look at it kind of like how the 512 acts during the open, you kind of have to dial down to a shorter tick or a smaller tick. And even on the smaller tick, you can see that we came down here and then the RVI stayed the same, if not pushed up just a little bit. And so we do have kind of the short time frames giving us a little bit of bullishness off of this test of the overnight low. But if this overnight low breaks, we want to be looking for a long around 26. So it looks like it's rolling over. So unfortunately, that is not holding. And it's kind of like what I said. I didn't expect for it to hold here. I really do expect a little bit deeper here to 26 to 27. So this was definitely worth a shot as a trade. But again, not with any significant risk. So there was the overnight low to the tick at 41.30. You can see that they are still trying to defend that right now. But as how far this push goes, it could just be 4 to 8 ticks. And for anyone that's new in the room, in order to see my screen really clearly, you're really gonna have to maximize the my stream to your entire window so you can see the resolution. Because I'm broadcasting this from a 2500 by 1080 monitor, so pretty big monitor here. And if you see it, if it's too small, then everything is just going to look kind of blurry. So we'll see if they end up defending the overnight low, which was exactly at 41.30. Like I said, it was worth a shot, but not with a lot of risk. And risk really should be just 2 ticks below the overnight low down at 29.50. So I originally told you to try it at 31, stop at 29.50, so a 1.5 of risk to see if we can kind of hold here and now advance up to the all-time high. But ultimately, what I'm personally looking for is a continuation down to 26.